Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. My whole focus around this channel is to keep you updated on these cases that maybe you should know about, or maybe past cases you should know about, with the sole intention of just helping you be aware of what could possibly go wrong out there. Thank you for joining me today, and we're continuing the story of Ethan Crumbley, the 15-year-old kid who shot up the Oxford High School and killed 4 of the students. Terrible, terrible, terrible situation. And so here we have it, that the parents were on the run for a little while. They literally were on the run. I know, why would they do such a thing? Unless they had something to hide. So, when they were first missing, their attorney said they're not missing, they're on their way back. They left for their safety. Why were they worried about their safety? Why were they worried about their safety? And that's what I don't understand about this story. So we come to find out that the parents, mainly the dad, bought this gun, this sour gun, something sour, right? It was like a 9mm or 22 maybe. And he bought this on Black Friday. Now, from what has come out since, it looks like he may have bought the gun for Ethan Crumbley. And that's why it's like, okay, why would you buy your son a gun? It kind of makes sense, right? I know that in the cases like this past weekend here in Missouri, a lot of people started hunting. It became legal to start hunting, right? It's a seasonal thing. I'm not a hunter, so I couldn't really tell you about that. I think I've only shot a gun once in my life. Went target shooting for those little things that disc out there and whatever. But I know that a lot of people want to teach safety. So I get that part. But what we're finding out little by little is that, this boy had some hiccups. This boy had some issues. And he was showing signs to not really be in the right state of mind. And so now the Michigan prosecutors have charged the parents of Ethan Crumbley. And today is Monday. They were charged on Friday. On Saturday, the parents pleaded not guilty. And that's exactly what I want to talk about is, what does the prosecution have to prove in order to find their parents guilty? Because, with this whole story, what do you think? Do you think that the parents are guilty on this? Or is it too early to actually know what they knew and did not know, or what they could have prevented? And now that the parents are now facing 4 counts each of involuntary manslaughter, that's 1 count for each of the teens who died in the attack at Oxford High School last week tomorrow. So about 6 days ago. And now we have the arrest of Father James Crumbley and Mother Jennifer Crumbley, and the facts of the case are starting to come out. But here's the truth. The prosecutors must prove beyond a reasonable doubt in order to secure a conviction. Will they be able to do that? You see, in Michigan, they have a Michigan law of involuntary manslaughter. Now, this is punishable by not more than 15 years in a state prison and a fine of up to $7,500 or both. This will be determined by the court after they are either convicted. Well, in order to face one of these two, you will have to be convicted. And so this is a crime that does allege that the parents, they unintentionally caused the deaths of the 4 victims of the shooting. And so if they are to be held responsible, yeah, they're going to be seeing something. They're going to be seeing something. But you see, the charge does require that the state will have to prove two basic elements around this. Number one, causation. Are they the reason this occurred? That they were the cause of this? If they purchased this gun specifically for him, that could be a hiccup. And number two, gross negligence. And it's interesting because a story did come out that the Crumbley's neighbor, she says that she warned Child Protective Services about the way they were with their son. The partying they would do, the staying out late that these parents would do. And so the neighbor, she revealed that she had called Children's Protective Services, CPS, as someone who was a ward of the state. Yes, the Child Protective Services was called on my mom, and we were then taken away from my mom. But this neighbor, she reported the way his parents were treating Crumbly. So she's going to be an eyewitness to this. Right? I mean, it's probably fair to say that this neighbor, Kayla Lemieux, will be a witness in this. You have a lot of witnesses. There's a whole lineup of witnesses. But Kayla claims that Jennifer and James often left Ethan alone, when they went out to the bars in downtown Lake Orion. That's when Ethan was like 8 or 9 years old. Now remember, he's 15 now. So, they were leaving him alone to go out to the bars. That's a little, at that young age, 8 or 9 years old. So apparently Lemieux, who lived in the same residential complex as the Crumbleys, she says she made an anonymous phone complaint to Child Protective Services because she was concerned of Ethan's well-being. That's interesting. But, despite the complaint, she believes that nothing was ever done. She believes nothing was ever done. And so her quote to the Detroit Free Press was, when they were gone, Ethan would come knock on our door. This is according to her. And she said that Crumbly would ask Lemieux to call his parents for him because they wouldn't leave him with a phone. Now that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad, and something should have been done. And so Lemieux apparently worked with Crumbly's mother. She worked with Jennifer, right? And, when they worked together in a restaurant back in 2012, she said that she considered Jennifer a friend, and the two would often spend time together outside of work. So it sounds like she got to know her a little more, right? But she also said that, the friendship quickly faded once Lemieux started to worry about Ethan and his safety. So Lemieux started seeing signs. She felt like, this is not a good mom. This is not the type of person I want to be friends with. And she made an anonymous call to Child Protective Services, which it doesn't look like anything was done. And, so you got that little bits of pieces. So it looks like it's dating back a number of years that this happened when he was like 8 or 9 years old. And so on Saturday, the parents were arraigned after attempting to flee from authorities. Now, I definitely believe they tried to flee authorities. I don't know how far they thought they would get, but a manhunt definitely ensued right away. You had the local, you had the state, you had the federal law enforcement agencies all involved with this, literally. And officials, they said that Jennifer and her husband, that they took out $4,000 out of an ATM before ending up in Detroit. So that definitely looks like they were trying to run. And ultimately, they were found in an art studio inside a commercial building. Apparently, the guy who owned this art studio had no clue they were in that art studio. He says he had no idea that they were in there. And, when the police found them, they looked distressed. They literally were at the end of the ropes. Whenever you're on the run, I can imagine that's not going to be a good time. There's no partying in that instance, So it looks like James Crumbley did purchase that gun for Ethan. And it was a Sig Sauer 9mm pistol. And this was a Black Friday, and he bought that as an early Christmas gift. And here's the thing about that. The Crumbly parents knew about his behavior that people were concerned about. So there's a sign that some of this could definitely be pointing to the parents. Because you had the school officials who said they were concerned about his behavior. They shared this with his parents. They even had a meeting the morning of the school shooting. And so the reason why they were in there, the school had alerted them about this disturbing and violent images in a drawing found on their son's desk. And the parents were urged to get him counseling. And Ethan, he told the teachers this violent drawings are about a game that I would love to design someday. Something along those lines. But he said it was about a gaming design that he was trying to do. And so the parents, they refused to take their son home after that morning meeting. And they did not ask him about the gun or even inform the school that he was in possession of one. If they knew he was in possession of one and they did not share this, that don't look good either. That does not look good. So now you have Ethan Crumbley, who has been charged as an adult with 4 counts of first-degree murder. And even 1 count of terrorism causing death, 7 counts of assault with intent to murder, and 12 counts of possession of a firearm in the commission of a felony. And the reason why he has those 7 counts is because those are 7 more people that he shot and wounded and injured. And 4 died, 3 died instantly, 1 would die later on the way to the hospital. And now Ethan is facing life in prison, and he has pleaded not guilty to all charges. How does he expect to not be guilty? Right? How does he possibly expect that? And so that's exactly what we're going to be hitting on. Are those 3 elements that prosecutors must prove in order to find the parents guilty of this heinous crime as an involuntary manslaughter. Like, they didn't actually pull the trigger and they killed, but they had something to do with it because the signs were there and they did not pay attention. So we're going to go through that. The first thing that the prosecutors have to prove, they have to prove that the defendant knew of the danger to another. That is, the defendant knew. Now remind you, the defendants here are the parents. The parents are the defendants here. Ethan will have his own case with this heinous act that he committed. But did the defendants, the parents, did they know that there was a situation that required them to take ordinary care to avoid injuring others? So basically, could they have done something before this even occurred? So that's going to be a big thing that the state must prove. The state must prove that the defendant caused the death, that the parents caused the death of each victim. That's what they're going to have to prove. And that is that each victim died as a result of specific alleged acts of the parents. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal with that. So the second thing, the defendant, could have avoided injuring another by using ordinary care. Basically using your common sense. Could you have avoided this? Could this have been avoided? So the prosecutors are going to have to prove that this could have been avoided. Now, let's be real. That's not going to be an easy thing to prove, right? Because they must prove that the victims' deaths were the result of the defendants, who are the parents, having acted in grossly negligent manner. So, it's easy for us to just say automatically they're guilty, right? I definitely think little by little it's not looking good for them. What do you think? What do you think? Hey, if you like stories like this, be sure to smash that subscribe button. Click on that like of this video. That way YouTube will know, hey, you got some value from this. Or if you're on Facebook, click the like on that. That way Facebook knows you got some value and they'll show you my stuff when I go live or upload content. But back to the show. Did they know? Did they know, and could they have prevented this? And so according to the model jury instructions, this is what gross negligence is defined as. This is defined as more than carelessness. More than carelessness. Rather, it actually means willfully disregarding the results to others that might follow from an act or failure to act. So that's the second thing they have to prove, is that did they fail to act when the signs were there, when the red flags were there? You see, that's a big part of it. And that's what I mean, that to prove gross negligence, the state must prove these following three elements that I'm going over. As I mentioned, the first one, did the defendant know of the danger to other people? Right? Did they know there was a situation that required them to take ordinary care to avoid injuring another person? So if the red flags were there and they disregarded it, they're guilty. And that the defendant could have avoided injuring another by using ordinary care. Being parents who cared about what your kids were doing is basically what that means. Right? Basically, that's what that means. So in order to prove gross negligence, they will have to do those things, including the third thing, that they fail to use ordinary care to prevent injuring another. To a reasonable person, it must have been apparent that the result was likely to be serious injury. Think about that for a second. If they failed to use, okay, my child has a gun and we didn't even ask him about the gun, but we got home and the gun wasn't there, but we thought there's gonna be something to this. And more will come out, but they have to prove these three things. They have to prove that in order to find them guilty. And so, according to the prosecutors, they're alleging that the parents, that the acts of the parents as having caused the death of the four victims. And this is what they're saying: storing his or her firearm and its ammunition so as to allow access to the firearm and ammunition by his or her minor child. And this is where it definitely looks like they are guilty of. Because if he bought this for Ethan, if he bought that gun for Ethan and you didn't do proper storing for it to keep it safe from him, And now the prosecutors are also alleging gross negligence as a failure to perform the following legal duty. And here's the verbiage on those allegations. And this is according to the charging documents. This is straight from the charging documents. Failure to exercise reasonable care to control his or her minor child so as to prevent him from intentionally harming others or from conducting himself so as to create an unreasonable risk of bodily harm to others, knowing that he or she has the ability to control his or her child and knowing of the necessity and opportunity to do so. And so what that basically sums it up means that they failed to provide a reasonable care to control their child, to prevent him from hurting other people. So there you go. Now, again, the parents have pleaded not guilty to all of these accounts. They're saying we are innocent of this stuff. And so they were arraigned on Saturday, this past Saturday, where they said not guilty to all of these accounts. And so now the prosecutors, they're alleging that the Crumbleys kept their Sig Sauer 9mm handgun in such a manner that it allowed Ethan to access it and use it to allegedly murder 4 fellow students. I don't think there's any alleged about this, but he did say not guilty. So they're saying that the prosecutors are saying that James Crumbley, his dad, he purchased the weapon just 4 days before the shooting. Now Jennifer, she allegedly posted on social media that the gun was a gift for Ethan. That's her words. She posted that on social media. And so the defense, now they're coming back saying the gun was actually locked. Well, how did he get to it? And they're saying, so when the prosecution is stating that the child had free access to a gun, that is just absolutely not true. That's according to the defendant. Continuing to say, we need an opportunity to fight this case in court and not in the court of public opinion. Why did they run? Why did they run? Why did they not allow Ethan to speak to investigators right away? They told Ethan, do not speak to the investigators. Right? So if they did nothing wrong, that right there is wrong. I mean, like, why wouldn't you let him talk to? This is what I mean. You especially after getting off of this Gabby Petito case and watching the Laundrie parents tell their son Brian Laundrie, do not speak to investigators, and here you have it again, do not speak to investigators. Does that also open up Brian Laundrie's parents for getting convicted of a crime, or being, prosecuted for a crime? So in Michigan, involuntary manslaughter is a common law criminal offense. So the courts have exercised their independent constitutional power to define, what's going to go into this common law. It's up to them. And so that's what we know now. Will they be able to prove those 3 things? Will they be able to prove these 3 things? Did the defendant know of the danger to the other kids? Right? Did they know about that there was a situation that required them to take ordinary care to avoid injuring others? Can prosecutors prove that they knew and didn't do? Can they prove that the defendant could have avoided injuring another by just using ordinary care? Can they prove that? Can they prove that the defendant failed to use ordinary care to prevent injuring another when, to any reasonable person, it must have been apparent this kid was going to do wrong? So if other people are seeing that, but the parents just disregarded it and didn't see any of this, well, that can definitely be gross negligence, I would think. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that they will face any crime? Do you think that they will be found guilty? They were fleeing. They took $4,000 out. I don't know where they planned on going with $4,000. Not going to really get you much time, they must have known something. What do you think? Do you think they knew something? Let me know in the comments. My friends, thank you for joining me today on Manny Rodriguez with Deep True Crime, where we want to keep you updated on these cases that you need to know about. What could possibly go wrong around us? If you have kids in school, here's another school shooting. Be aware of the signs. I don't know. It looks like some of the teachers knew there was problems. That morning of the meeting, the parents should have taken him home. Let him read, to kind of let some things think about. Let him think about some of this stuff. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, my friends. I'm Manny Rodriguez. As always, I look forward to serving you again. And be sure to smash that subscribe button. Click on that like button. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great